Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host Armando Venditti, and I hope you guys are having a great afternoon. I got this idea to do this video just shortly after I finished my previous video that I just did. This is going to be another installment of Misguided or Misunderstood. The band I've chosen to talk about is U2, and the album I've chosen to talk about is Pop. U2 have always been considered to be a band of the people. From Ireland, started around the early 80s, released a string of albums, slowly gaining momentum, gaining popularity, with albums such as Boy, October, War, started really hit their stride with the Unforgettable Fire, basically hit the mainstream with the Joshua Tree or the Joshua Tree, depending how you pronounce it. That was where the band really hit the mainstream and hit their I would say commercial peak with videos such as or songs such as With or Without You, Where the Streets Have No Name, Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. That album really put them on the map. And I do remember watching them do a press conference at the Alma Combo Club in Toronto back in 87 to, I believe it was either announcing the release of the album or their tour that they were going to be doing. They released Rattle and Hum, half studio album, half live album, which to me made no sense. And it was at this point that, to me, they seemed to lose their way a little bit. They went away for about 3 years, came back in 1991 with what I believe to be, and I will always believe this to be the case, that this album, Achtung Baby, was in fact their commercial and critical peak. Album was produced by Daniel Lanois and Brian Eno. And to me, it incorporated elements of Bowie, a la Low and Heroes. And basically, for me, that was the major influence. Bowie, the elements of Bowie production that Eno did on the album was, to me, what put it over the top. People have said in reviews that they use electronic elements. I really didn't hear that. They did do that when they came up to doing Zooropa, which after the release of Octung Baby, they embarked on what they called the Zoo TV tour. During that tour, they recorded another 10 tracks and released the album Zooropa, which to me is a more scaled down version of Octung Baby. So much time and effort went into making Octung Baby. And to me, that is their critical and commercial peak. Again, I will always say it is and will be. They took a break after the Zoo TV tour. They released an album under the name Passengers with Brian Eno, which I've featured on another video, that featured basically instrumental music and avant-garde music from non-existent movie soundtracks. Took another year off, came back with this album Pop in 1997. It was recorded between 1995 and 1996. It was released on March 3rd, 1997, produced by Flood, Howie B, and Steve Osborne. 12 tracks. This album is much more polarizing than Passengers was. In that, on this album, you had a much more of a dance electronica feel to their music. A lot of tape loops, a lot of sampling, a lot of electronic elements, with songs like Discotheque, which was the lead off single, which personally it's my favorite from the album from that period. Other songs are Please, Staring at the Sun, Mofo, If God Would Send His Angels. They heavily used electronic elements, drum samples, drum loops. I believe at this point, Larry Mullins Jr. had hurt his arm, so he wasn't around for a lot of the recording. So they had to rely on sampling and drum machine effects. It is, to this day, I believe, one of the lowest selling album in their catalog under the name of U2. Passengers, by the way, did not sell as well as they expected it to. So it is considered a U2 album in their catalog, but I believe it's just above pop. This album alienated a lot of their fans. A lot of their fans. And I don't know if it was a situation where people like myself, I mean, I'm guilty of this too, where I'll fall into the trap of getting into an artist and getting into a certain era of their music. Like, I'll give an example with me, Prince with Purple Rain. When Purple Rain came out, it was a massive hit. And I fell into the Prince fandom, like a lot of people did. And then when Around the World in a Day came out and Raspberry Beret came out with the video and the rest of the album, because it was outside of the scope of Purple Rain and all of that hoopla and a different look and a different style of music, essentially, I had a hard time grabbing onto that album. The same goes for U2 with pop. I had an extremely hard time grabbing onto this album. I mean, again, I did like Discotheque as a lead-off track and a lead-off single. I think that it was a fantastic start to the album. And the promotion for this album was massive. I do believe that the launch of the album, or I believe there was a press conference, I do believe, seeing on TV, and I do believe that it was set in of all places, a Walmart store. And they were coming at it from a dance electronic point of view, musically, and they lost, I believe, they lost their way again. They really fell into this trap of, dance music is the way to go. We're just experimenting with this and we want to see where it can go. It's the way, that people are going musically, and we just want to try it. And Bono had said in an interview that the reason why the record business was in a slump at that point is because the records that were being made were boring. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this album, in my very, very humble opinion, did nothing to improve the sales of albums in the music business. I'm sorry, it didn't. I find it to be a very one-sided album in terms of musical direction. I don't find it original in any sense of the word, unfortunately. The only song, the only song that is a leftover from the Achtung Baby era is a song written by The Edge called Wake Up Dead Man. And from the arrangement of the track, live drums, live instruments, because I believe at this point Larry Mullins Jr. rejoined the band in the studio. This one track had the elements of a live band in the studio. The rest of the album, again, is full of drum loops and sequencers and samples and keyboard textures galore, to very much, in my, again, humble opinion, the detriment of the music that's being presented here. I had trouble visualizing how we be as a producer collaborating with U2. It didn't work. They've worked with people like Brian Eno and Daniel Lanois, you know, among others. It didn't. This, to me, this was not the band that released Pride in the Name of Love or Unforgettable Fire as a single or Sunday Bloody Sunday or New Year's Day. It was just a total left turn. Unfortunately, it led right into a brick wall. Because although the tour was popular and people did go to see this tour, I know of someone who went to see the pop, not the Pop Mart tour. I did go see the Pop Mart tour. I'll get to that in a sec. I know a friend of mine at the time, she went to see the Zoo TV tour at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto, and she loved it. The Pop Mart tour I went to see, and it was all flash and dash and spectacle, and you had the giant lemon, shaped object above the stage, and it was very much in your face. It left little room for substance. And that's what I feel about this album. Other people are going to come back at me and say, you know what? This is a fantastic album. This is an innovative album. This is what they needed to do. This is where music was going. This is what they needed to do to recharge the batteries. Valid points. In my opinion, again, it's just my opinion, I do not believe that this album holds up however many years later. And again, it does remain one of the lowest selling albums in the U2 canon catalog. Sorry, I can't speak today. So, in closing, do I think that this was a misguided step by the band? Yes, I do. I do not believe that this was misunderstood by the audience or by the press at large at all. I do believe that this was a misguided step in order to try something different. There is a danger when you do a project, do an album, that you might go too far left or too far right. And you may get to a point where you've gone too far that you can't get back on track. Luckily, they did in the 2000s with albums like No Line on the Horizon and All That You Can't Leave Behind and How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. Great album title. I do believe they did get back on track with those albums in the 2000s. I do believe, though, that in 1997, on March the 3rd, they released the biggest mistake that YouTube has ever done or committed to record. Again, it's just my opinion. Down below, please leave your comments. Let me know what you think. Do you think that Pop is a good album? Do you think that it was misunderstood by the fans? Do you think that it was a mistake and it was a misguided attempt by the band to gain a bigger audience? Please let me know what you think. Leave your comments below and click like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content that I've got coming up. I've got other videos in my head that I want to try and get done. But for now, please look after yourselves and one another. And if it's warm where you are, stay cool. If it's wet, try and keep dry. And I will see you soon with another video. But for now, have a good day. Bye-bye.